Ms. Peckler wasn't abducted in order to get ransom money from her family or her business associates. She was abducted to be human bait. Ms. Peckler walked in the door expecting to discuss a real estate transaction. Instead, what she found were 3 armed men, and what they told her was, if you can get George Safiev to come here, we'll let you go.
However despicable, it seemed that Mikkel had finally come up with a foolproof plan for hitting the jackpot. But he didn't do his homework. You see, George Safiev was leaving for Moscow that very night, and there wasn't much room in his schedule for a kidnapping attempt.
George Safiev is at the airport. He gets a phone call from Rita Peckler, and she tells him she needs to meet with him urgently, that there's a problem with the IRS, and he says, I can't, I'm getting on a plane. So he said, I can't, talk to you later.
Ms. Peckler hung up the phone. She looked at to them and said, well, what about me? What's going to happen to me now? Mr. Mikkel, Mr. Kanavis assured Ms. Peckler that she would be all right, but of course they had no intention of letting her go.
After Safiev returns from Moscow, Mikkel sets another trap, this time for one of Safiev's business partners, Nick Karabadze.
He grew up in the country of Georgia and came from a well-known family there. His mother was a famous actress in Georgia. He came to Los Angeles and was a rising star in the entertainment industry.
They invite Karabadze to an exclusive party at a private club, but this club is really Mikkel's aquarium shop. When the guest arrives, Mikkel and his henchmen greet him with guns drawn.
After Mr. Karabadze was abducted, he was handcuffed to a chair in the Design Waterworld business, and he was forced to call Mr. Safiev.
This is the night of the Golden Globes. He tells him he has some people that he wants him to meet, and George is reluctant, doesn't want to, but eventually does agree to come down and meet him.
And when he walked in the door, he saw Mr. Karabadze seated at a bar that was at the Design Waterworld location, and he immediately knew that there was a problem.
Mikkel hauls Safiev and Karabadze back to the house where the others had been held. Then he and his gang treat themselves to a little spending spree.
They took one of Mr. Safiev's credit cards and attempted to charge approximately $9,000 to that card in ordering elaborate video and recording equipment.
Mikkel then forces Safiev to call his office and have $969,000 in ransom transferred to a bank account in Miami. Safiev's associate does as he's told, then later calls the FBI.
While I'm in Dubai with my other agents, I am called by my office that there is another 2 people kidnapped.
And at that point, the FBI is able to put 2 and 2 together, that it's very strange to have people from the same community kidnapped in basically a 2-month period of time.
All of the FBI's work following the ransom money is about to lead them to Mikkel's doorstep.
Me and the other agents were on the plane looking through the property documents that were seized, and as we're going through the paperwork, I noticed a contract related to the facilitating of this $234,000 wire transfer. On that document were 2 accounts. One was Latvia, and one was Bank of America in Studio City.
It's a corporate account for the aquarium business owned by Yuri Mikkel. Agents have no idea what his role is in the kidnappings, until they uncover surveillance video of someone using Alex Umansky's ATM card after he was abducted.
I am at the office looking through some footage from a bank of an ATM use. It turned out one of the victim's cards was used. That's when I see the person who took the money.
Comparing the man on the surveillance tape to Mikkel's driver's license photo, agents make a positive ID.
That was the needle in the haystack that they needed to find. It's a really big haystack. There's a lot of needles in there, but this is the one that they needed to find.
The FBI believes they've cracked the case, but they can't go busting down doors until they know where the hostages are.
We have to believe that they're alive and we have to go after our investigation with that hope. Because if for some reason we're wrong, and we hit the wrong house at the wrong time, and that does cause people to die, then that is tragic.
The feds start tapping Mikkel's phones.
So now we have to deploy surveillance units. We have wiretaps up, listening to conversations, and everything is starting to tie in together.
So far, Yuri Mikkel and his gang have kidnapped 5 people, and they're still prowling around LA like the characters in Grand Theft Auto. The tide is about to turn, however, but for the hostages, it may already be too late.
It's a puzzle. Never seen anything.
He was paid. They made the decision that it was time for them to kill Mr. Safiev and Mr. Karabatsi.
Mikkel loads the men bound and gagged into 2 separate vans. Their destination, an isolated reservoir 350 miles north of Los Angeles, the perfect place to dump a body. It's all going according to plan until Einar Aldmanis, Mikkel's directionally challenged lackey, starts riding up the rear of the van in front of him to keep from getting lost.
A sheriff was in the vicinity and spotted Mr. Altmanis tailgating, so he pulled Mr. Altmanis over.
Altmanis is sweating bullets, but never lets on that he's got Karabatsi tied up in the back. As for the victim, there's nothing he can do to get the cops' attention. Both he and Safiev have been force-fed vodka until they passed out.
He explained that he was from out of town and that he was lost and they were looking for a place to stay, and so he was following his friend who was in front of him. The officer left satisfied with that explanation.
The gang continues on until they reach their destination, a quiet spot near the remote reservoir. George Safiev is pulled from the van and murdered using Mikkel's favorite method, strangulation. Karabatsi meets the same grisly fate. The killers clean up their mess by dragging away the bodies and tossing them off a bridge. It's been a long night, but Mikkel is already thinking ahead.
They weren't going to stop there. They were still on the lookout for anybody who had money, particularly rich Russians or rich Eastern Europeans.
But first, like some kind of wannabe mafioso, Mikkel takes some time to enjoy his spoils. His shopping list? Too tacky to be believed. He puts money down on a Ferrari and a pair of purebred Doberman pinschers. He and Kadamovas buy mink coats for their girlfriends and throw a big party to celebrate. Discretion and good taste weren't invited to this party.
What drove these guys was just unmitigated greed. I mean, they wanted the $1 million houses. They wanted $2,500 Dobermans, which isn't even a popular dog here in Los Angeles. Pit bulls are. They wanted mink coats, which most people wouldn't be seen in Los Angeles wearing.
But more than anything, they want more money. Pretending that Safiev is still alive, Mikkel demands another $4 million in ransom, or else. This time, the FBI is listening in, and it sounds like Mikkel's nearing the end of his rope.
Mr. Mikkel is growing increasingly more frustrated and angry. He's threatening, and it's during those wiretaps that the FBI is able to intercept calls from Mr. Mikkel. And as a result, by February 19th of 2002, the government had sufficient belief that Mr. Mikkel, Mr. Kadamas, and others were involved in this kidnapping ring to move in, to arrest them, and to search their houses.
141 days after Mikkel's first kidnapping, the feds storm his castle, guns drawn, expecting to liberate the hostages. Hope fades as they find room after room empty. What they do uncover, however, is a goldmine of evidence.
Agents searching Mikkel's house just hit the mother lode. Mikkel is very meticulous, very anal retentive, maintained a lot of files.
Files that included personal information on the victims.
They found a number of weapons, including stun guns. They found rope. They found duct tape. They found receipts for items that were purchased to help the group do their kidnapping activities. So there was just a treasure chest of evidence that had been found at Mr. Mikkel's place.
but they still haven't found the victims, and Mikkel isn't talking. Lucky for the feds, Mikkel's sidekick, Einar Aldmanis, is willing to spill his guts, even directing agents to the gang's gruesome dumping grounds.
A massive search team was assembled. First, they sent down a device which scanned the bottom of the reservoir, basically a sonar device. And they were able to get a sonar scan which showed what the landscape on the bottom of the reservoir looked like. And when they got those pictures, they were horrified because what you could see at the bottom of the reservoir were the outlines of a couple bodies that were sitting directly below where the bridges were. They then sent down a submersible device called a remote operated vehicle. And when they reached the bottom, the camera confirmed everybody's worst beliefs and what Aldmanis had told the FBI, that in fact there were victims down there. And it's almost surreal. You